Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Mike Fairborn. Good to have you here for After the Close. Barb Armstrong reached out to me to see if I could cover the class for her. I was happy to do so. And by the way, she's traveling to another event, so just keep that in mind. Another live event that you've got out there on the road that you folks might be interested in. So just a quick note on that. But it's good to be here with you today, folks. Today I wanted to take a look and see what is setting up potentially for an interesting scenario as of tomorrow. What can we find in terms of maybe some recent closes above shorter term resistance, maybe the possibility of a flag pattern. I want to look at some of the flag patterns out there with K holds or K holds out there, and then also perhaps even taking a look at earnings and seeing what has been beating earnings as of late. Because a lot of times companies that have beaten earnings can be positioned, if they beat earnings and rally, that is, they got to run as well. But if they jump and gap and run, sometimes those can be really interesting to take a look at too for an after the close type strategy going into tomorrow as well as the next week. All right, and with that, I'm joined in the chat by a very good friend of mine, John McNichol. It's a privilege to have him on board. Very knowledgeable in the market. It's great to have John here. Hello to you, Jay Richardson, David, Greg, Scott, and Will. Folks, I feel like I just spoke to you on our last discussion as I was doing chat for Kevin's room, but it is great to have you here as well as Riceberg and Beth. Folks, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat as well. And John caught there the essence of the closing bell. Thank you, John. All right, well, with that, folks, let's turn it over to some disclosures real quick to get the show on the road. The information here is for general information purposes only. Now, options do carry a high level of risk. They're not suitable for all investors. While this webcast discusses technical analysis, other approaches like fundamental analysis may assert different views. The Pigmeroni software application is for education purposes only. Investing does involve risk, including the loss of principal. Past performance of any security or strategy does not guarantee future results or success. Well, I think we're going to find out exactly what event Barb was going to because she did put it in the slide deck, which makes sense because Barb's on the road quite a bit. But folks, you can see up top here, you can register for those events. Wanted to highlight that because your regular presenter, Miss Barb Armstrong herself, is at that event and does go to a fair number of those with Kevin or Ben. Ben, I think, is one of the main presenters there too, but she is in Anaheim, so in California. That is the Advanced Option Strategies Workshop there. Those are the dates. Anaheim Marriott. You've also got the next one coming up. That's going to be the June timeframe. I'm just going to scoot over here a little bit to see that. June 13th, and then the New York in June 28th. So some interesting ones to be mindful of there. And those are both market drives, by the way. But great she had those within the slide deck, and she's added those in for us. All right, everybody. Well, what I wanted to do is take a look. In fact, that is really, I would say, an X tweet that I had just sent out, an X post that I just sent out. I was looking at what are the top performers today. And a lot of times when you find strength in these companies, here's the last, that can kind of be helpful too, the last price, just to see how high they are priced or how low they are priced. But it could be just a great way into the Market Watch tab. You can see over here I have the change in here. I've put that in really descending order from the top on down, what the best performers were and why. And sometimes I will have, obviously over here, the sub-industry too, to see if there's any correlations to specific industries that have been moving. See a couple of biotechs in there. You got some defense. You've got some staples, a couple of staples in there as well with some tech. But these can sometimes be positioned for moves into the next day. They might be breaking out, and sometimes you might find, just generally speaking, news, folks, news that's coming out and driving those higher. Now, news itself can be a huge driver. A news can create a hold, right? A close above the high of the low day. What a cool tool to be able to spot that very quickly. S&P 500, NASDAQ 100. I think it's just an easy way to get a lot of numbers really quickly. The post I sent out, you can get at Mike Fairborn CS. That one, and then by the way, John McNichol CS as well, folks, if you have to following us. But that post right there it also included the PE ratio, which can be an interesting reference too. Sometimes, you see the numbers quite high, but some of them are maybe in the 20 to the teens range, and those could be, maybe they're not as overvalued, all else being equal. But if you want to check that out, I sent one out too earlier today on um, flag patterns, specific flag patterns. There's some of them that have already begun to move outside of their flags. I look at a lot of flags. I teach that swing trading class, but anyhow, some of that kind of spills over into these other classes that I'm teaching. But all right, so there's kind of a look at what's been going on there. What I want to talk to you about, though, first off, let's look at the broader markets, and then we'll dive into that. That just happened to be the screen I had up, so I thought I'd take a moment and share with you how I look at that, folks. With the S&P 500 index, we are holding above this long level above. I'm trying to point to 80 here. It might be a little bit high, but I'm very close to the level, somewhere around 80. We're holding above there on our market forecast. That is, folks, the intermediate term line. That's our proprietary indicator right there on the Thinkorswim platform here. And a lot of times when you hold above that level, I'm going to redraw this, and actually let me just put a different color in there, make it stick out a little bit more. I think we're much closer to this line right there, or very close to that. And what I wanted to point out is when you hold above that level for some time, one way that investors and traders will use this indicator is basically if you hold above 80 for a period of time, a lot of times that can mean strength in the market. So the way traders will use it is they'll say, well, this right here, according to the market forecast, gives me confirmation or insight that I can put in long positions. We're still holding above that level. And this is an interesting one too, that you can kind of back test a little bit too. But this just kind of gives you a sense of, are we kind of in a risk on or a risk off? Do we think that there's going to be, a position we can put on in the market? Or are we going to wait on the sidelines? Right now, according to the market indicator, we're at 89. So, clearly above that level that a lot of traders will use. I'm going to just show you over here too, the history, just to give it a little bit more context, a little bit more data. Let me see if I can eyeball this a little bit better. Probably somewhere in there. Now, if I can draw a straight line, which I didn't. See, that straight line is longer than other straight lines. I got to really draw this for a long time. But there you go. That's approximately 80 right there. And we're holding above that level. Do you see this over here? We started over here on some of these longer term moves, right? Will this be an extended move that went on for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months or so over here? What are we in, about 2 months now? Close to 2 months. In terms of rally, we get a longer term rally. Well, sometimes these rallies will hold above the 80, as you could see, as prices make their way to the upside. Again, folks, intermediate term line there. All I wanted to simply do in this particular case was look at a risk on scenario. Market right now is showing some strength. We'll see what happens. As I break that down just real quickly, I think it's always helpful when we're looking into the next day, what sectors, after the close specifically, what sectors could also be showing some strength. Here is, let's just detach it too. We'll detach this guy and we'll make it even a little bit bigger. Okay, there we go. All 11 sectors are here. A couple of those that were interesting, I think maybe one of the strongest ones could be up top here in terms of industrials, which was up just real moderately today, 0.97. That's not percent either. It's a smaller percentage, but you can see we cleared a prior high over here. Just a quick note, did we clear this high on staples? No. Did we clear this high yet on tech? We did not. Communication services, which oftentimes is in line with tech, we did not. Another one that has been strong as of late is financials. We did not clear that one either. Okay, so the one that's been clearing the most has been industrials, and that can be an interesting area to look at too. When you see a strong chart like this, you might see some of the companies that look even stronger. In fact, we do have some. As a quick note, I did point this out yesterday. I've looked at this a little bit, but here is one that falls into industrials like John Deere, for example. Maybe a little bit of a pullback here, the possibility of a flag. Notice, folks, it's cleared not just this prior high that we were looking at on some of those sectors, but it's cleared a higher level. Those that have broken out into new highs, or those that I should say are keeping the industrial sector the strongest, sometimes, well, as the president has been pulling in a lot of funds into the U.S. to improve manufacturing for a number of set jobs, right? That's the goal. it could be having an impact here, and we'll see if a trend like this continues, because this is totally different from a lot of the stocks that are out there. One thing I can note over here very clearly is just a series of higher lows. Quick note, I did look at CAT. CAT was kind of into a sideways channel, got a little bit of a breakout line in here to see if it does break out higher, but we shall see. But those are some ideas to look at. I think sector strength can be really, really interesting, looking at the strongest sector, because you're getting companies that are even stronger. And sometimes to get a whole sector to go higher, this is just a key point. It took me a while to kind of get this down, but when you see an entire sector going higher, which is filled with a number of different industries, sometimes there are fundamental reasons for it. When you get that many companies actually that are behind that. What I mean by that, there could be some macro drivers. I think tariffs might be the big driver here. I would also say a stronger read on some of the economic numbers has generally helped tech previously, historically, and we'll see if it does it again. Because that right there looks a bit like a bull flag, and it could be starting to move. Okay. All right. Well, that's just getting some of those things out of the way. What I want to do right now, though, is go back and look at, let's do this. I'm going to actually, that was our detachment there. If you guys want this, I'm going to just share it real quick. Share this right now. That is the 6-month grid, and here you go. It is not a ThinkScript, so all that is right there is just all 11 sectors with the S&P 500 bottom right-hand corner for a 6-month time frame. If you like that view, if you think you can find that helpful, that's what it's there for. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and go to a Market Watch tab. I'm going to right-click in this area here. I'm going to knock out a couple of these guys, give us a little bit more space. There we go. And what we'll do is I'm going to add in a ThinkScript column here. I've changed the code a little bit. I think this one might be perhaps working a little bit better. I don't know. That was the goal. I was running into a couple of different issues with the past one. This is the Cahold. So these are all the companies that closed above the high of the low day today. Let's go ahead and if I double click on it, I've changed some of the coloring as well. Anything that's a 1, you had a close above the high of the low day. So if I just choose one over here, here's an example. Here is, okay, we got Seagate. We've also got Corning. Let's take a look at Seagate right now. STX. Back to our standard charts. STX, that is Seagate Technology Storage Company. Okay, so did it close above the high of the low day? The low day being what? Here? I think this is the low day. This is the low bar, and we did close above the high of the low bar. It's just a little bit difficult to see. I'm going to try to cut through some of these issues by throwing on a flag screen too for us. So a combination of a flag pattern with a Cahold, something like this. So you get the flag pattern and a Cahold in here could be interesting. You know, you're closing by the high of the low day. It could be kind of the start of the move or something similar to it, or something that's already had a flag pattern, for example. So let's look at a few more of these, though. What was the other one? GLW? Corning. All right. Did it close above the high of the low day? This would have been the low day here. It was lower than these 2 days. So technically, I guess we did barely close above it. Some of these aren't positioned as well. But you can see that this is one approach using a Cahold here. Okay. I'm going to see if we can get anything that might have been down for the last maybe 5 days. You see what I'm doing? Or even last 2 or 3 days. So if I come over here, I pull this 5-day over. What this is showing us is that we've got a potential pullback in some of these, but today we had a close above the high of the low day. So we're coming off the bottom probably on a couple of these stocks right here, or even those that haven't moved up a big number, like, you know, Seagate's up, well, 13% over the last 5 days. So you can use different columns in here to give us a sense of what we could be seeing strength for into tomorrow, right? After the close. Here is ball that might not have been so strong, over the past 5 days or the past month, but kind of like maybe a trough, and then maybe coming out of that trough. Here is ball right here. Let's pull that up. BALL. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. The low day is just over the past couple of days is the way I think this is looking at right now. So it did close up on the day, right? And so that is what we're saying. You can see a little bit of a sort of a flag pattern here, perhaps a little bit of a pullback, folks, as we've broken above some highs. These can be interesting areas for us to look at. Now, something like this ball, Corp, if you come over here, you click, you just look at some of the patterns as well that could be developing. Shoulder, head, shoulder. It's a little bit higher shoulder, but what I think is one of maybe the giveaways here is the neckline. When the necklines line up very well on these, sometimes you can be positioned for a longer term pattern. So this is kind of similar actually to Caterpillar, and it does fall into that industrial area where we have been seeing some strength. But it says when you see the strength, you see the patterns come in with it. So the possibility, how do we test these out? What are we looking for? Well, we're looking for a bottom range to the top right here, and then that extension coming up over that same level approximately, if you can take out that high. Now, I do look at alerts quite frequently, and that's how I track a lot of these paper trades, that we look at here. And I'm actually going to put one on right here as we looked at this, because we don't know if we'll get strength after the close tomorrow or into next week. But I'm going to go right click and just click on create an alert right there. It does default as at or above, and I'm just going to say breakout. Question mark. Okay. So I can get that texted to me in about 3 to 5 seconds. It's normally how that works. Of course, you have to put that information in up to set up application settings and then just go into notifications. You can also do it via email. Email can be quick too. I've always just used the texting though. All right. Now the other one we saw in there that had been down, that also had the hold was give it a second to load up. We're looking at the 500. I might switch to the NASDAQ here in just a second, but that's right, AMT. I'll pull that up right now. And there you go. So, okay. So there is a little bit of a breakout right there. I mean, well, just breaking up higher today in terms of potential strength right there. Okay, maybe just barely breaking above a trend line as well to go higher. So this trend line breaks can be really, really interesting. I don't know if you guys knew this too, but let's just say, for example, if that trend line, if I activate this guy and pull it up just a little bit here, let's just say that's the trend line, and I want to see if it breaks above that level, I can simply just right click on the trend line, and that too can be used to create an alert with that drawing as well. So I just did that, and you have to change this one to above because the default's below. And then you could also just say breakout on something like this. So the nice thing too about these sorts of strategies on the hold, I mean, you do have time at the end of the day and overnight, right? Early morning, whatever the case is, to do kind of some analysis or some review of the stock to see if it might meet other criteria that you might be looking at, longer term charts. You can put the Fibonacci's on. You can look at some of the fundamentals, which I oftentimes will do too, as I do that. As I do my reviewing. So keep that in mind, but the hold can be quite helpful there. Let's just make sure. I'm going to share this link. You guys can check this one out relative to the other one. This is just it right here. I'll share that with you. And, oh, didn't go. Get formula. Okay, I'm just going to send it. Here it is. Share. I'll put that in the box. And by the way, ThinkScripts they're not guaranteed for timeliness or accuracy. As long as the data is correct, though, in terms of what it's looking for, we have good data coming to the platform. But as long as that data is correct, then these should give us, the hold or whatever the case might be. Let's go ahead and take a look at the NASDAQ as we've got it right now. Here we go, NASDAQ 100. Pull this up, And you can see there's a lot fewer companies in there that have the Kahoot. I'm going to run through some of these, and I'm going to use a little trick over here too. I'm going to right click, customize. I'm going to add in the send to red, pull this up, put that right next to my symbol, click OK. I've got the red in here, so now all I'm going to do is just detach this, and I'm going to pull this over here is one way. You know, I could put this over here into my columns on the left-hand side if I wanted to with the chart, and just click on this too and just take a look at it. That's one approach. So there's Micron. And you can see some of the others here. It's a quick scan to kind of go through. There was an earnings jump right there as well that you saw. Yep. These have definitely been breaking up a bit, and I'm just going to hit all of them here so you can just kind of see. That was an earnings announcement. A good way to track those. Closing above the high of the low day. All right. So that is that. Now, this last one here we're looking at, LRCX. You notice on several of these companies, actually, this is just the last one in the group, but they had run up, and we're tying this into a bit of a flag pattern. Now, actually, the Kaholds on this began a couple of days ago, right over here. So this is the possible flag pattern, right? The move coming to the upside and a pullback. But you're going to spot, you know, as you scan through those fairly quickly, you might be able to find, you know, several that kind of meet this criteria where they're positioned to maybe bounce up a little bit higher outside of the range, and because they're closing above the high of the low day. And so what you're really getting at here is the very beginnings of the possibility of that flag pattern unfolding right there. Okay, so that's just the start of it as we get going into it. And Kaholds really pop up quite a bit. Now, instead of detaching it, the detach tool is useful in the scan tab as well. But if I come over here, I could still put it in just in a watch list and just already have it set in place. So I should have actually done that first to show you. But Kahold right here. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm also going to set up with this a flag pattern. So these are the flags that I've got right there. I'm going to pull this guy up, and there are those two separate columns. So some of these could be positioned very soon, and some might take a little while. You can see actually in the NASDAQ, oh, that's my default, sorry. Let's go into the NASDAQ or the S&P. I'll show you what the NASDAQ first here, but watch what this is going to do for us. So we got 100 of these lined up, and there you go. So these are flags, and that 2 represents that happened it's had a flag for at least a couple of days. Okay, so a lot of times what will happen is you'll move from the flag over to the Kahold, and that could be an interesting setup for the next day, perhaps. I'm going to go ahead and link this up right now and show you guys. CDW. You see the flag? Okay. Possibility of a follow through there. Airbnb. This is one that I actually had tweeted out too. There are a few of these in here. There's Cisco. So a strong move to the upside and that consolidation after. Think about moves, folks, after the close. And when I think about after the close, I'm not just thinking like just ultra short term. I'm thinking, hey, these could be setting up for, yes, after the close and after the week and into next week as well. So here is that kind of a flag. And those are some of the stronger ones out there, the ones that really have this big price move. But yet when it comes time for a pullback, it's just very, very mild. Look at this over here. I mean, that volume, it was really kind of peaking up here as prices were going higher, but then just sort of died off right there. So possibly fewer sellers. As I'm thinking about after the close or in the next week, it would be those flag patterns. It could be those Kaholds that are occurring in there as well. The Kahold's just another step further down the line. But let's look at a few more of these. There is Zscaler. That's just kind of that's not as clear as, let's say, Cisco. And some of these are okay. Yeah, there's another one. Resting upon prior highs. Palantir's had a massive run, and taking out this prior high right there. Look at that. just holding right at 120. Prior high here, really close there. And what are we doing? We're actually holding our ground right there with the possibility of a move. Now, if we were looking at Palantir for tomorrow, we're trying to get insight to see if it's going to break out higher. That's exactly what I'm going to tap into. I'm going to do it on Cisco and Palantir. I'm going to set over here. Of course, I could set in place like a hold indication. Like, does it close above the high of this low day? Does it trade above the high of this low day? There are a couple in here I could click on. If I right clicked right there, let me know if we take out this range. Create an alert. At or above. I'm just going to say breakout or breaking out. I'm just going to put breakout for now. So I could be notified here if we're just starting to get going. Do you see how that could be effective after the close? Earnings out of the way on this as well. And how did we do on that? Well, we did okay. About 8 cents to 13 cents. So a pretty good number, pretty good beat there. But a lot of these companies are a lot of times guidance, going forward, but really holding its range. Cisco was the other one that kind of was a standout. Okay. I'm going to try just for the sake of variation here, guys. I'm going to go ahead and put in a downward sloping trend line right there. Some of you might be using that. I'm going to right click that. Just go to create alert drawing. And this one, you always have to remember to flip up. So, because you're looking at a cross above that point. All right. So what I'm going to do here is just break out. Question mark. I'm going to have a number of these, but now I'm just thinking on many of the ones that I look at, I'm looking at either a longer term range, but generally sort of that flag pattern. Let me go ahead and make sure I'm sharing this with you guys too. Yeah, I could just do it over here, actually. This is a flag script that could be helpful for finding these into next week. That was one I got from Ken. This is the one he built, and there you go. I think many of you already have it, but hopefully maybe some of these concepts that we're looking at could be useful as you just think about different ways to set up possible indications for the upcoming week or tomorrow as well. Okay, I wanted to do this while we got it here. I'm going to go back to my charts, and I'm going to go ahead and I want to see some of the Caholds again. Notice we don't have any Caholds that have come in with the flags. One of the reasons is with this script, as soon as the flag is ended, it probably goes into a Cahold. So these could be kind of interesting. If you're looking at flags one day and we've got some eyes on them, and then all of a sudden you notice it's a Cahold the next day, it will have fallen off those flags. Before I'm done though with the NASDAQ, let's just scoot on down, and I want to show you what we've got at the bottom. So these have been on the other side for a few days. In other words, what the script also does is it looks at bullish. Folks, we know it doesn't just go all one way in the market. For those of you that have been around for a while, and I think many of you have, it goes two ways, and this chart is a good indication of that. We got the bear side right there. That is lower lows and lower highs clearly, and this script will help to kind of pinpoint that. And what it's showing here is that it's showing this is a bear flag in red, and that is for the last 3 days, and we've got a few of them to look at. Consumer staples, a couple of those. You got Heinz as well as Kraft Heinz, as well as Apple, which is not a staple. But notice down here, this is showing that that's a bear flag, but it's capturing this from the downward trend, because as long as there's a downward trend and we're spiking up, the trend is a good indication that it is a bear flag or not. But these can also be interesting. I'm telling you, if you look at a few of these, you'll start to find possibly the beginnings. In some cases, you will, a rounded bottom, cup and handle reversal too. So it's just interesting how those show up. That would be actually a good script going forward, you guys, is a rounded bottom. One that's been down for a while, but there's also, I would say on this, it's begun to take out some highs over here too, prior highs. Very interesting. Okay, KHC, bear flag, right? Do you see it? Possible bear flag coming down. It's not a bear flag until it's confirmed a new low. Finally, Apple. Okay, and you can see over here, clearly lower lows lower highs too. So that's kind of the scenario here for Apple. Now, this, by the way, has shown some strength in holding up and into somewhat of a range over here. Okay. All right. Now, those are some of the technicals. Now, you might find some overlap in here with some of the earnings, and you can see over here there is news coming out. I think ZS had earnings today. And how did it do? Well, it seemed to smash earnings expectations. The stock was still down on the day, and sometimes what happens is you can beat earnings, but yet they project out of the future maybe not as much strength, because that was minus 3 cents to 84 cents. So earnings can be something to consider, and what you want to look for are sometimes those earnings moves. And I've actually got a scan over here that I can pull up. Let me just clear this off. That looks for the earnings surprises that you might show. I wanted to leave you guys with this so you could see it, but just like we have all these earnings that are occurring over here, we can have a scan to find those companies that continuously have beat earnings over a period of time. And I've got one that looks at scans over a, well, let's see, a quarter. Here's a quarter. So this beat over the prior quarter. I'm going to show you what I was looking at when I set this up. I was just saying that it was over a period of time. The look back period is 20 days. So I'm going to go ahead and run through this real quick, because obviously we know that companies that have been beating earnings, recently, and some of them right after the close, sometimes they tend to run for a little while if they did beat expectations by a fair margin. Okay? And this one is looking at a decent sized beat. Now, coming over here, you can see there are 39 companies that did beat expectations within the NASDAQ 100 over the last 20 days. So these are earnings surprises. The one thing you can do with this is over the past 20 days is we can go over here. Notice we've got this percentage, and this is a built-in screen, by the way. This is a 1 month percent change. 20 days goes back 1 month. That's basically 20 calendar days. You're looking at about a month's time frame. If we look at this here, you can see what's been kind of moving over that time frame. And these were the earnings beats and the percentage moves within the time frame that we're looking back at. And so post earnings, many of these had pretty decent run-ups and other ones didn't. And so I'm really focused in on those that guided higher over here, taking a look at a few of these. And so just a quick note, I can tell you right now, TTD had a big one, the gap. But notice over here, just by using an earnings beat, thinking about trading into the next day, the next week, you see the flag pattern developing there? Possibly with a good earnings number. What was that beat at, by the way? Yeah, it smashed it. It was 7 cents estimated. It came in at 33 cents. Are you guys using earnings at all on this? I might want to do some additional classes on earnings, if not, because this is one that, a lot of times if they beat earnings expectations, that means something major was happening behind the scenes, folks. It means that the expectation was for underperformance, and the company might have turned the corner. And with that, you could see the trend also change. The value, the expected value of the company down the road could change as well. So keep that in mind. This sort of looks like, even though we had this, I don't know, I could probably drive a truck through that, but that is a big gap. But after the gap, at least, what does that look like to you? Okay, how about over here? Different color might help. You see that? A big earnings beat. We're looking at the ones that beat and then also ran. You can do it just by putting a couple different columns in there. Hope you guys found this helpful. Oh, let me show you guys how to do that. Once you got those links, if you haven't done it before, copy the link, right? Go up top into setup. This might just be easier on a visual perspective. Yeah, John has made note of it, but I'll just, visually show you guys this quick. Setup. If you're on a Mac, you'll still see the gear over here. So just in the upper right-hand corner, click on Open Shared Item. Boom. That's where you go. You put it in there, and then you can import it as well. And you know where you would find it, right? What we did were columns. So you'd want to, once you import it, you can make sure the name is the same name you want. I just used a very descriptive name, flags or Caholds. You come over here into that area, into the Market Watch tab right there. You click on the column, folks, boom, right there, and you'd find the name, Cahold right there. Just so you know where to use it at, right? These were watch list column scripts. The ones I'd shared earlier, as well as flags. Same thing, right? We just got them over here. Okay, good. All right, there you go. Yep. John gave you the description, though. I just wanted to give you a quick visual. All right, let's hit a couple more of these. I think you guys are getting the feel of it, though. I'll just show them real quick on the chart, and we should be good to go. You know, in terms of the scan, we had... yeah, percentages. I'm gonna line these up again. There you go. So we looked at there's MCHP, APP. Okay, this one actually already gapped up. You can see over here I have a little bit of maybe a measurement gap after earnings. Looks like it might come up and meet that level. We shall see. And then MCHP, voila, right there. Purple flag pattern. Notice it was tied into earnings though, and that's another just area you can tie into, folks. But today I just wanted to share you, I think, some of the tools that a lot of traders, investors do use. I mean, these are definitely areas that I like to look at. I mean, just in general, I mean, it's fascinating because all we're doing is we're just saying, hey, you know, Caholds, you're closing above a range. It might be flagging. These are just patterns that some traders would look at. I talk about them a lot. I guess that's what I should have said. I talk about them a lot in terms of education. If you guys want more information on flags and, you know, how to maybe some trade management around those, there is that swing trade class on specifically on Tuesdays where we address those shorter term moves, really 3 to 14 day moves that you're looking outside of that range. But that is what we're looking at. Okay, yes, Neha, absolutely. I would be happy to do that on earnings as well. And maybe we can talk about earnings on that swing trade class on Thursday. But all right, everybody. Well, awesome. On that note, if you got value out of today's discussion, please smash that like button and be sure to subscribe. It's good to be with you all. And in fact, I do not think there were any surveys today. And so with that, I wish you all a fantastic rest of the day. Thank you so much, John, for your help in the chat. As always, everybody take care. See you next time.